Naruto never learned the jutsus of his clan. The Uzumakis were known for a few things: great stamina, massive amounts of chakra, and powerful sealing jutsus. Kushina also mentions they were a little bit barbaric, which is kinda strange, but that's not the point here. I'm talking about their physical and chakra strengths. And Naruto being the main character and being from this clan, which is a powerful, famous clan in the Naruto universe with several different capabilities, doesn't really possess one of the things the Uzumaki clan is known for, the sealing jutsus. Obviously, Naruto has great stamina and massive chakra reserves, but one thing is lacking, and a lot of people in the Naruto community wanted Naruto to have sealing jutsus from the Uzumakis. So why didn't Kishimoto give those to Naruto? Let's explain this from an in and out of universe perspective. Starting with the out of universe perspective, a sealing jutsu kinda doesn't fit Naruto's arsenal. This is much more of a vibe type of argument, but Naruto is not the type of character that would use a sealing jutsu and you're looking at that and you say, yeah, no, that's completely what the character would do there. It makes complete aesthetic sense. It doesn't, because Naruto is a guy that bomb rushes his opponents with shadow clones and Rasengans of all sorts. The adamantine chains that Karin and Kushina use don't really fit Naruto's aesthetics. And I'm obviously talking about the character here, not the series. It would probably look and feel weird if Naruto started using chains instead of Rasengans and other things like that. Now, we do see a scene when Naruto is fighting against the Nine Tails and Kushina helps him out. There's some chains literally escape his body. So Naruto technically, in a way, used that jutsu, but obviously that was Kushina's chakra and it was Kushina doing that. And it looked good, but it doesn't look like Naruto, right? Also, Kishimoto doesn't really like to use a lot of different jutsus in a single fight. I don't think it's because he's lazy or anything, I just think it's because he likes to focus on one specific type of jutsu per fight. And also because just handling several jutsus at the same time is difficult. For example, when characters like Rinnegan Sasuke or even Obito with a Rinnegan fight, they only use one Rinnegan ability, for example. Sasuke used the Minato Chikara, Obito used the ability to control the six paths. Even though there would have been situations where the other Rinnegan abilities would have been useful. The same thing can also be applied to Naruto at the end of the series, who had access to the chakra of every single tail beast, every single next transformation, the truth-seeking orbs, and yet he was still using the Rasengan and shadow clones most of the time. So if you include the chains on top of that, it would just make it a lot more messy, and Kishimoto would probably end up neglecting the jutsu anyway, which is something that's worthy of criticism. Yeah, maybe characters should have used more jutsus if they had access to them and they were useful at a certain point. But that's one reason why Kishimoto just wouldn't really give the adamantine chains to Naruto. Giving other jutsus like the Reaper Death Seal, which is the only Uzumaki jutsu we know besides the chains, would obviously not work because that jutsu kills whoever uses it, and Naruto as the main character obviously can't die. I mean, technically Madara kills him by extracting the Nine Tails at one point, but he's revived, or he doesn't die because the Nine Tails is put back into him or the other half. If Naruto used the Reaper Death Seal, he would just die and his soul would be sealed, and that wouldn't work out. But also, there isn't really a situation where Naruto would have to use the jutsu himself. Now yes, Kishimoto could have come up with a different jutsu that Naruto would use, an Uzumaki-style jutsu that would fit the character and also situations he would be in. The adamantine chains could have been useful, not the Reaper Death Seal, but I can think of a sealing jutsu being very useful in the work to seal the Edo Tensei Naruto is fighting against. Like, he fought against several Edo Tensei, especially when he uses the multi-shadow clone jutsu to spread himself around the battlefields. So narratively speaking, there was a point in time where a sealing jutsu would be very good for Naruto. But narratively speaking, it would also be difficult for Naruto to train that specific jutsu. Every time Naruto acquires a new jutsu, he has to train for it. The Rasengan, the Shadow Clone Jutsu, the Rasen Shuriken, KCM, attaining the Kurama Chakra mode. You can even say that, even though it's not formal training, but freeing the Nine Tails to acquire KCM2 is a type of training. He had to work for that. And yeah, there's a big exception when he gets the powers of Hagoromo, but the Uzumaki sealing jutsu would not be something he would just get from Hagoromo. He would have to learn it down the line. And the issue here is that there isn't really much time for you to spend on another training arc that Naruto's going to go through. He already goes through several training arcs arcs during the series, and this new jutsu that's not gonna be even very impactful can't really occupy more training arc time. I guess you can do that off screen and just say, yeah, Naruto learned that day you didn't see, or kind of combine the training arc of the Sealing Jutsu with another training arc, kind of like how Kishimoto combined Naruto's finishing of the Rasen Shuriken with Sage Mode, because it's when he is learning Sage Mode that Naruto also learns how to toss the Rasen Shuriken. So you could do those ways, but you can see how that adds a few complications to the story. Would it have been a good idea? Actually, I think so. Not the adamantine chains per se, but some other type of Uzumaki Sealing Jutsu would be cool to see. I mean, maybe he could have learned with Kushina when she was talking to Naruto and telling him about Minato's death and everything. There were ways to do it. It just makes it more complicated if you don't want to add additional mini arcs into the series. Regardless of what this hypothetical Uzumaki Sealing Jutsu would have been, it would not have been an extremely important jutsu in Naruto's arsenal. It would be something much more secondary that has some niche usages, but because it would definitely not be as impactful as the Rasengan, the Shadow Clone Jutsu, or the Rasen Shuriken, you couldn't really spend too much time doing it. Now, you could maybe go the route Karin went through when she learned the adamantine chains, which you kind of just awakened them essentially and started using them against Guru Zetsu. And yeah, it would feel kind of weird if Naruto had the same awakening as Karin did. A little bit repetitive, but you could technically just do that. Would that be satisfying? Maybe. Some people probably would enjoy seeing Naruto with Uzumaki Jutsus, but other people would just be like, oh, wait, how did he do that? We're gonna go through Karin learning to use the adamantine chains out of nowhere later in the video. So now let's move on to the in-universe reasons for why Naruto didn't learn Uzumaki Sealing Jutsus. Sealing Jutsus as a whole are pretty difficult to accomplish. They require a great deal of chakra control, and that's something Naruto is not great off, at least in the beginning of the series. Obviously he improves, but it's never been his strong suit, even after he achieved godlike powers. So that will already make things pretty difficult for Naruto to learn any Sealing Jutsus at all. However, we obviously know Naruto has ways to learn extremely difficult jutsus that require massive amounts of time for you to master, like the Rasen Shuriken, and he can do that by using his Shadow Clone Army technique, where he can cut down the amount of training you have to do in terms of time substantially. That's what he did to learn the Rasen Shuriken, and Naruto even learned the Rasengan by himself without that quote-unquote hack. So if he had instruction, or if he had the time, he probably could have learned a Sealing Jutsu, even if it's not his speciality. However, the fact that a Sealing Jutsu is not Naruto's speciality would make it so that Naruto would not prioritize learning Sealing Jutsus to begin with. Because yeah, even though he can cut down the training time with his massive clone army, he could be using the training clone army to learn something else instead, or practicing some taijutsu or something that's going to be more useful for Naruto. Yeah, Sealing Jutsu can come in handy here and there, but Naruto's not going to use that as a main thing. As I said before, it's going to be a secondary jutsu, and he's much more powerful with other abilities. Yes, it could be good for him to have a Sealing Jutsu in a pinch, but he's going to prioritize more stuff. Then again, if Naruto finds out that his clan used to be really good at Sealing Jutsus, I can see him wanting to learn some Sealing Jutsus like his mom used to know. And if Kakashi or Jiraiya or Tsunade or whoever else that had some sort of mentor-student relationship to Naruto told him, yeah, you're an Uzumaki, I think you should learn the Uzumaki Jutsu, the Sealing Jutsu, they would fit you. I don't see Naruto not wanting to learn that jutsu. He's always very eager to learn new stuff. But why doesn't he then? Well, maybe his mentors think that Naruto wouldn't be good with Sealing Jutsu, which is fair, even though I don't think every single one of them would share that opinion. However, there are other reasons as well. Now, Kushina's backstory is pretty interesting, actually. She came to Konoha after Konoha picks her up in the Uzumaki lands. The Leaf Village chooses her to be the next Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails after Mito, because Mito was like 500,000 years old at that point. She had a powerful chakra that would be good to contain the Nine Tails, and it had become a tradition for an Uzumaki to be the vessel of the Tail Beast at that point. We know the Uzumaki village, or Usuhiko, was completely destroyed by the time Kushina left it. We don't know why. I mean, it is implied it's destroyed when Kushina left it, but she says that, oh, at this point, the Usuhiko village doesn't exist anymore, it's destroyed and everything. It could have happened after Kushina left it for the Leaf Village. We just don't know exactly, it's never really explained. But one thing we know is that Kushina learned stuff. She she learned sealing jutsus before she left her village, because she tells Naruto that she taught Minato several sealing jutsus, including the Reaper Death Seal. That's kind of a grim jutsu for you to teach your husband, isn't it? I don't know. I wouldn't want to teach my wife that jutsu. It's just kind of weird, you know, you die if you use it. I guess it's important in a pinch. I mean, it was important for Minato to have that jutsu. I just think it's kind of grim for you to teach that to your husband or wife. Regardless, Kushina taught Minato all those abilities, meaning that she had knowledge Minato didn't have beforehand. Yes, Minato's a genius. He obviously picked out those jutsus very well, but because Kushina had been the one to teach Minato those jutsus, it's very much implied that nobody else in the village had access to them. Because if Kushina had to be the one to teach Minato those jutsus, why wouldn't somebody else have done that if she wasn't the only one capable of doing so? It's because she learned that stuff in her old village, the Uzumaki village. Or maybe she learned it in the Leaf village itself? Maybe Mito Uzumaki taught her, which doesn't seem to be the case at all, because it feels like they don't have a very close relationship in the Minato one-shot. Kushina and Mito have a lengthy conversation in that one-shot, but it feels like they're meeting for the first time, or that at least they haven't seen each other very often. And Mito's also really old. I don't really see her teaching Kushina a lot of stuff at that point. Kushina also became the Jinchuriki pretty soon after she arrived to the Leaf Village, which means Mito died soon after Kushina arrived because, well, when you lose a tail beast, you die. So there wasn't really much time for Mito to teach Kushina stuff. Maybe Mito could have left some Uzumaki scrolls she had from back in the day. After all, Mito was extremely proficient with sealing jutsu. She sealed the Nine Tails into herself by herself. So she was extremely powerful and underrated, but it doesn't feel like Mito was the one to teach Kushina that stuff. What it feels like is that Kushina just had that knowledge from her old village and she taught Minato those jutsus. She literally tells Naruto that she taught Minato the Reaper Death Seal, and those jutsus as well. And you have to keep in mind that those jutsus are not even KK Genkai jutsus. They are hidden Uzumaki jutsus, but technically anybody could learn those. That's why Minato, who's definitely not in Uzumaki, learns the Reaper Death Seal and several other Uzumaki jutsus. Hiruzen also learns the Reaper Death Seal, and he's a Sarutobi, not an Uzumaki. The problem for Naruto to learn those jutsus is that Kushina is kinda dead, so she can't really teach them. However, this is not an end to the conversation, because Hiruzen learned at least one jutsu Kushina brought to the Leaf Village, which is the Reaper Death Seal. And Hiruzen is also stated to know every single jutsu there is in the Leaf Village, which is not true. I mean, he obviously doesn't know every single one of them. It's one of those hyperbolic statements, but he obviously knew a lot of jutsus, so he could have learned other Uzumaki jutsus that Kushina brought to the Leaf Village and taught Minato. And if Hiruzen knows those jutsus, the Leaf Village definitely knows those jutsus as well. I would even say that if Minato knows those jutsus, the Leaf Village would know them. And when I say the Leaf Village would know them, I'm just saying that the Leaf Village has records as to how the jutsu works, how you can master them, just like they have scrolls for the Shadow Clone jutsu that Naruto steals in the very first chapter. So they would have a way to teach other people in the Leaf Village the Uzumaki jutsus. I mean, it's likely that with Mito herself, they would already have that stuff, unless she kept everything hidden and didn't teach Hashirama, her husband, or anybody else the Uzumaki jutsus, which could be a thing because the Uzumaki clan was actually a bigger presence when Mito was younger, and maybe she wouldn't want to leak her clan's secret jutsus to the village itself. After all, there are several jutsus that technically the Leaf Village possesses that belong to clans, and those jutsus are not necessarily KK Genkai, they are hidden jutsus that clans possess, like the Nara's Shadow Possession or the Yamanaka's Mind Transfer and other mind abilities. Those are not KK Genkai, but the clans are not gonna share those jutsus to everybody. After all, clans are still political entities within the village, and having jutsus that other people don't is political power they have and can leverage to negotiate within the village itself and everything like that. So it would make sense for Mito not to teach everybody in the Leaf Village about the Uzumaki sealing jutsus. But obviously they didn't apply to Kushina because Kushina's really an orphan. We don't know exactly what was her situation before, but it feels like she didn't have much of an attachment to the Uzumaki clan. Also, she literally taught those jutsus to Minato, someone that's not an Uzumaki, so now the Leaf Village has access to those jutsus. And yeah, had Kushina stayed alive and raised Naruto, I have no doubt she would have taught taught Naruto Uzumaki jutsus. It would be pretty cool to see a Naruto that grew up with Minato and Kushina and the types of jutsus and abilities he would possess, but unfortunately for him, this is not the case. Kushina dies, Minato dies as well, and so Naruto is trained by people that are not necessarily specialists at sealing jutsu, or people that even think Naruto should learn sealing jutsu. Jiraiya and Kakashi are much more focused on developing Naruto's natural strengths, using his massive chakra pool and stamina for his advantage. Teaching a complex sealing jutsu to a young Naruto would have been very difficult, much different from teaching him the Rasengan, for example, which is a difficult jutsu to master, but it's a jutsu you can pretty much brute force your way into learning it. Sealing jutsus would be much more complex when it comes to how you even produce the jutsu. And there's also the fact that Jiraiya, Kakashi, Fukasaku, Killer Bee, and whoever else taught Naruto were not really masters in sealing jutsu, so they wouldn't teach those things to Naruto. Or at least, sealing jutsu wouldn't be the first thing they would teach to Naruto. Maybe later, as a secondary jutsu for Naruto to learn, they could say, yeah, maybe sealing jutsu would fit you, Naruto, but that doesn't really happen. It could have, as I said before, but Kishimoto didn't choose that route. But what about the adamantine chains? Those are like innate to you, aren't they? Because Karin just awakened them and she started using them very well against Guru Zetsu. And yes, the adamantine chains are actually extremely powerful and underrated so. Kushina, after giving birth and being extremely weakened, was able to use the adamantine chains to paralyze the entire Nine Tails for a decent amount of time. People really overlook that feat, but it's pretty damn insane. The jutsu is extremely powerful, and that also speaks volumes about Kushina's stamina, power, and sheer guts after giving birth and being able to do that. And that wasn't the only time Kushina paralyzed the Nine Tails with her chains. She also did that inside of Naruto's consciousness, and also inside of her own consciousness, helping Minato out in the Minato one-shot. So having a jutsu that's capable of stopping the strongest tail beast in its tracks is definitely not something you would pass on. Karin's jutsu definitely doesn't seem as powerful when she uses the adamantine chains, but we only see her using the jutsu one time, and it was the first time she was ever using it, and still, it was pretty damn powerful. It was able to overpower a Buddha-armed statue from Guru Zetsu, which it's not a Hashirama Buddha statue or anything like that, but it's not terrible. That thing was giving the entire alliance, I mean, the Chakraless alliance that wasn't really fighting against the main villains, a lot of trouble. There were Kages fighting and pretty much stalemating Guru Zetsu, Onoki, Mei, the Raikage, Tsunade even. They even mentioned that if Edo Hiruzen wasn't helping them out, the Guru Zetsu statue would have destroyed them, and Karin pretty much destroys that statue with that jutsu, so the adamantine chains are extremely powerful. It's also implied that, much like a Mangekyo Sharingan, those chains will awaken in Uzumaki after they feel overpowering emotion. Karin awakens the chains when she thinks Sasuke's about to die, and she has to go really quick and rescue him, so the chains just come out of her. We don't know how Kushina awakened those chains, because we know that she was already able to use them in the beginning of the Minato one-shot, when she used the adamantine chains to paralyze a few Anbu guards that were guarding her. Still, it was definitely during some traumatic event, and also much like the Mangekyo Sharingan, it feels like the user gains innate knowledge of how to use the jutsu once he awakens it. That's how the Mangekyo Sharingan users are capable of using their jutsus even though they don't train for it, because training for a Mangekyo Sharingan jutsu would just make you blind. And when we see Karin awakening the chains, she is using them pretty damn well for a first time. So why doesn't Naruto learn that jutsu? If you just have to awaken it and do it, why not? Because yeah, the out-of-universe explanation, it wouldn't fit Naruto's character very much, and it would feel much like Karin's awakening. But in-universe, that doesn't really apply, does it? If Naruto was an Uzumaki and capable of using Uzumaki jutsus like that one, why doesn't he develop the chains? After all, Naruto goes through plenty of traumatic events and mid-battle traumatic events throughout the entire Naruto series, and if Karin, of all people, was strong enough to awaken the chains, Naruto Uzumaki certainly was as well. But there's a very good reason, actually. There is another Uzumaki that never awakens the adamantine chains. And that Uzumaki will be Nagato, who is actually an Uzumaki, that he doesn't know about it, but still, he's powerful, he has the chakra reserves and the stamina of an Uzumaki, but he also doesn't have the sealing jutsus, or the adamantine chains. He never awakens those, even though Nagato also goes through plenty of traumatic events and mid-battle traumatic events during his life. And And what's the thing that both Nagato and Naruto share when it comes to their bloodline? Well, on top of them being Uzumaki descendants, they are not full-blooded Uzumakis. Naruto is much more obvious because he doesn't have the characteristic red Uzumaki hair. He has blonde hair that he inherited from Minato, but Nagato not as much. He has the red Uzumaki hair, but when we see his flashback when his parents die, his mom has the red Uzumaki hair, meaning that yeah, she was an Uzumaki, but his dad just has black hair. So his mom was an Uzumaki and his dad was not, just like Naruto. We don't know Karin's or Kushina's full lineage. We know Karin's mom was an Uzumaki and everything from a filler episode, so I guess that counts somewhat, but we don't know anything about Kushina. However, it is very likely that they were full-blooded Uzumakis, or at least very close to it, and so they were able to awaken the adamantine chains. Naruto and Nagato, because they're only half-blood, never really got that ability, even though they are extremely powerful Uzumakis. And so Naruto could not awaken the adamantine chains, and he never really learns an Uzumaki sealing jutsu. Watch this other video right here for more cool Naruto content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and definitely ring notifications. Those are very important, and it only takes you 5 seconds to do it, so please do so. Thank you so much for watching.